So, introduction to Shamanism. Welcome, Shamanism 101. Hello, dears. Obviously, I'm completely stoned already, which is a good start when you're shamanizing. So, Shamanic Journeying. That's the real truth of it. That's the real thing. Shamanic Journeying is what it's all about. I've just watched a brief introduction to shamanism, and the teacher looked as though she had a lot of wisdom in her. But she was a bit formal in her teaching style, whereas I'm a bit wild. I'm a wild shaman, I haven't gone to shaman school, but there's sort of shaman schools, and she seems to have gone to a shaman school, and I'm kind of a wild shaman, like I learned shamanism by living in the woods, basically, is how I turned into a shaman. I became knighted into shamanism by 6 months ago. Basically, I started going to the woods every day. I was like, why am I going to the woods? It's nice in the woods. It's nicer in the woods than anywhere else, because I had nothing else to do. I'd finished a big batch of work and I had some time, and I was like, right, I'm going to take some time to just not do anything, have some time off. And I just decided that every day I'm going to go to the woods, because it was just nice to do, and just like to sit on a tree stump and look in the woods. Then I started getting a spliff. I actually found free weed lying around in the woods. Free weed. 2 bags of free weed and more than two, more like 5 packets of free cigarettes lying around. Someone's gone in there, bought a grinder, bought a grinder, right? They've gone in there, right? They've bought a grinder every time, and another combine harvester as well. No, combine harvester. That's old jokes, man. Yeah. So this guy, I presume it's a guy. This doesn't seem, sorry if I'm being presumptuous, but in my local area, this does not seem to be a feminine or female type of action. I believe it is a person of male persuasion, because it seems very masculine stupidity. Basically, it's masculine stupidness. Only guys would be like this, because they're dumb. Some guys are dumb. We're all dumb. I'm just trying to dig my hole out. Feminism again. Shamanism, not feminism. Shamanism, 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 shamanism. Shame on the shamans. So yeah, became a wild shaman by spending loads of time in the woods. I mean, I've already actually lived in the woods. I've been homeless before in my life. And I kind of learned shamanism then as well, when I was homeless back in the 80s. It wasn't the 80s. It was the 90s. No, it wasn't the 90s. It was the 20s. It was the 20s. There was the zeros. There's a sort of crossover between the noughties and the teens. Aren't you glad we're getting out of this convoluted mess of a beginning? No one knows how to call these terms, because we're not in odd six, are we? And we're not in like 1915, but 2015. We got to deal with those numbers and realise that our conception of the future, when we watched the Back to the Future films, was vastly inaccurate. So far, anyway. Maybe we got the dates wrong. It's just a date issue. Just a dating. Wrong date. Alternative timeline, maybe. Possibly. There are already flying cars in some realities on this earth. I'm sure there are. But the ones I've seen are terrible. They're just basically helicopters. And that's not a flying car. That's a fucking helicopter. Or it's a drone. It's not a flying car. You want a flying car. Like the one in the Back to the Future. If it literally does not look anything like something on Back to the Future, or even like Fifth Element, I don't want to know about it. Propellers? That's some steampunk shit. I'm not looking for the steampunk reality right now. That can be somewhere else. That can be a theme park. Steampunk life. That does sound cool. Mortal engines. But yeah, shamanism. I became a shaman by living in the woods and being homeless. And more recently, after 3 months of doing fuck all, my mum basically kicked me out. She was like, "You're doing fuck all, off you go." So I went to live in the woods with my girlfriend, and was in there for 2 months. And that was some deep woods. Trust me. I'm a shaman. Trust me, I'm a shaman. Yeah, there were some deep woods in there. You should not be living in there in the winter. That's dangerous. And there we were. And it was dangerous, man, with mold, spores, cold, damp, rain constantly, pretty much. Mud everywhere, which is just unpleasant. It's unpleasantness, man. And then the one bonus point, and there are other bonus points, but the main one is the fresh air. So fresh to live in the woods. So fresh. But not in the winter. Not good. Not in a tent. Terrible tent. A summer tent, basically, which is all we could afford at that time, was summer tents, because they're the cheapest ones. And you're going to only get a certain amount of money per week, so we only had certain amounts to spend per week. So yeah, not much to go on. Between two people, £56 per week is not really very much, but we survived. We managed to attract free cash from various sources, and pulled through. But yeah, so that's the most recent journey. But it was a unintentional one. I had been shamanic journeying before that on a purposeful basis, but then a shamanic journey kind of appeared out of all of those other previous ones, and we were off on a journey. Basically, we were off on a 3-month round trip around the local area, staying at various different places and ending up in the woods in the middle, and then coming back through another different portal of reality. Very bizarre, honestly. Very bizarre sequence of events that I've just been through, which would constitute a shamanic journey, but it's too long to describe the whole journey just now, because it would probably fill about 3 books if I could say everything that happened. It was a very interesting journey. Lots of things happened, lots of bad things, lots of good things as well, but I'm not ready yet to tell the whole story. Basically, it's just too long right now. I'll probably do that on another video, but not tonight, another night. So, anyway, shamanism. I became a shaman by living in the woods. Not just the 2 months one, but I've lived as a psychotic person for a while when I was 19, and I became homeless because of that, and I lived in a psychiatric ward for a couple of months then. This was 2 months. 2 months. You have to do things in little 2-month periods, or 3 months. So this is like the end of actually probably a 3-month period now that I think of it. Actually, this is the 10th of the 12th, and we got kicked out of here on the 10th of the 9th. So 3 months have passed. 3 months have passed. And I love these things, like all these natural rhythms, 3 months, and the 90-day rhythms of the planet, and the years and the seasons, you know. I love these ideas of rhythms in nature and rhythms in time, rhythms in people's lives, that it's a kind of evolving journey, but there are also loopholes in people's lives that can be manipulated. What's the real word that I want to use there? Manipulated is extortionated, twisted, jumped through portals to, as the lady previously on this other video, she said, do you take a journey into an non-ordinary reality, or non-ordinary state of reality, something like that. You can do shamanic journeys without being stoned, without having any drugs in you. Shamanic journey, as I define it, is a journey that means something to you. It's a symbolic journey. That's another way of putting it. It's a symbolic journey. You go on a journey and you use the idea of symbolism or metaphor and meaning and structure, narrative, story, message, things like that. Path. A path is like more a part of the methodology rather than a kind of understanding. So you got this, like, if I had to try and structure a sort of talk to you about, to try and structure some points, some bullet points to give you about what is shamanism. I think there are different levels of understanding that you can get to in shamanism. It's not about technique or practice even necessarily. It's about why are you doing it? It's always, why am I doing this? That's the question you ask. What do I want to do? Is the question that where shamanism arose. Really, what do I want to do right now? That's the question. That's the eternal question. What do I want to do right now? And it's the same question in different forms, which is, how do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? What do I want to do? What do I feel I need to do? It's all the same, like same kind of heart-centered. Who am I? Where am I in the world? What is my vibe right now? These kind of questions. That's what shamanism. That's where it comes from. And that's where you're sort of seeking to intensify your connection to yourself, to life, to other people, to the world around you, to nature. But you can't really, and you shouldn't, I don't think, you shouldn't discriminate between a shamanic journey in nature and a shamanic journey in urban scenario, or even in the home. You can shamanic journey in the home, you can shamanic journey in an altered state. Just entering into a drug-induced state of any kind really is a shamanic journey of sorts, because you're taking yourself into a non-ordinary reality, a non-ordinary perception, non-ordinary mode of input, mode of living, right? On purpose or for an intended result. That could be a better point. Yeah. So shamanism is really, for me, about journeying, but there are different levels of understanding that help you to structure your journeys, if that makes any sense. So, for example, a good one that I can talk about quite freely and easily is the topic of paths. So to go on a shamanic journey, for example, if you want to go on one, just take this one idea and probably you'll go somewhere with it. The idea is paths. Now, I'll just talk about the paths that we generally observe in both nature and in urban situations. So your paths are things like pavements, pathways, paths run by bikes, paths run by people, paths run by animals, paths run by machines. Roads are a kind of pathway. Rivers are kind of a pathway for, river beings and water. It's their water's path, isn't it? And then, yeah, as I've already said, just repeat that the general path idea is a singular point of travel, isn't it? You go along this axis of travel and you call that your pathway. So from here to there, I have to take a path to get from here to there. So basic understanding of pathways, but what you do with it to make it shamanic, and why I would say shamanic, is you're taking it out of the ordinary. You're taking it in a creative direction per se, or a psychic direction, or a deep direction. Whatever your purpose for your shamanic journey is, that will have to inform the structure of your journey. So if you take that idea of paths again, paths, shamanic pathways. So different types of path that I've come up with, or that I understand exist, or I believe exist. When it's shamanic like this, it's hard to know how to even describe things because it's so unknown. Another thing about this shamanic pathway of spirituality is, what are you doing interrupting my video, man? This is shamanic right now. This is a shamanic foreskin. What are you doing? This is an advert, conscious advert from God to say, sorry, I'm a game. Sorry, it's a great game. What's going on? This is just had a spirit child walk in here. Where did this come from? Did you put that there? Did Mum put that there? Did I? Who knows? Sorry, things have just broken down, people. Let me carry on with the subject. So yeah, shamanic. So part of the thing with shamanic is the unknown, which was actually just demonstrated instead of me talking about it. It was demonstrated some unpredictability. You never know what's going to happen. Shamanic journey, right? The unknown. So I wrote this down in one of my little articles on shamanism, which says, shamanism is the pursuit of God in the unknown. So you're trying to reach a higher state of consciousness, or find a connection to God or to spirit or the universe, to nature, and you're doing it by journeying into the unknown. So some of my early shamanic journeys, I can see if I look back, probably were when I got on my bike and I was just so tired of being in the house. I just got on my bike, but I had no destination. That was the thing. I had no destination in mind. So literally, I got on my bike outside the pavement, and I basically asked the wind where to take me, which is the easiest route right now. You know, where do I want to go right now, based on the look of the sky, the feeling in my chest, the breeze of the wind? Where do I want to go? Literally, that's a shamanic journey began right there. Just sick of being in the house. The purpose was to get out and go somewhere. That's a shamanic journey. Just go anywhere. And to go into the unknown, because you don't know where you want to go. You just ride. You just journey. You just walk. And then you find out where you're going to go. You just arrive at the end going, it's just gone. So obviously that's worked. So there you go. Like I said, you just got to get up and go. That's just, she's off on a shamanic journey there. The conscious advert from God. What's going on? She's gone off into the unknown. She came from the unknown. Now she's gone off into the unknown. So she's shamanic journeying, man. It's deep. It's a deep video. It's like spooky shit. It's probably a cat's going to appear and jump like from the ceiling or something. We don't even have any cats. But it's going to happen. Let's bring the elf back. Hey. How's he going to sit there? I don't know. Yeah, so shamanic means to journey into the unknown, basically. Let's get him in there. Who am I? Oh, fuck this. I mean, this room is like a shamanic fucking cave, you know. I've explored all these weird things in this cave. Not even all of them, but like, what's this? Ah, the hairbrush. The broken hairbrush. You know, how you can't use that. That's a 2-finger hairbrush. 2-finger hairbrush. Oh man, this room gets filled with new stupid things as we go. Ah, and here's a 4-finger hair comb. Good, a 4-finger one. Anyway, so yeah, we're obviously still shamanic right now because I'm talking shit. Anyway. Oh yeah, shamanism. So shamanism is a journey into the unknown to try and pursue some higher reality or some higher consciousness or whatever. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for shamanism. So pathways. Let me talk about pathways again. It's a key idea. It keeps coming back again and again, like the narrow path, bullet points, the narrow path, the diagonal path. You've got the road not taken, but bollocks to that shit. That's low level understanding. Sorry to say it, Robert Frost or whoever wrote that thing. The road not taken, the path not taken, whatever. Who cares about the path not taken? Bullshit. Who cares about the path less travelled by? That's what it's called, isn't it? The road not taken, the path less travelled by. I don't know. Whatever it is, that whole thing. It's supposed to be this really meaningful poem. Fuck that. Throw the poem away. Carry on journeying somewhere else instead. He takes one path and it's supposed to be so meaningful because he took the individualized path or the meaningful path or the lay of the land or saying blah blah blah. Shut up! Who cares? Forget about your poetry. You shouldn't be reading classic poetry like that. You should be writing classic poetry like that based on the journeys that you've taken in the shamanic realm. When you're in the shamanic realm, you should be writing that sort of stupid fucking poetry for other jerk-offs who are not brave enough to go into the shamanic realm to write. So there you go. That's the shamanic pathway. Yeah. There you go. That's a good point. Shamanic. So pathways, yeah, all sorts of different pathways. Let's talk about the narrow path. I'm on the narrow path today. It's always fucking narrow path. I did a bit of diagonal path earlier on. Yeah. Sitting is good as well. So sitting or meditation when you're in a shamanic journey is good. If you can find a bench or if you can find a sitting point, that's good. But the narrow path really is is a way to access other realities, realities you would not normally come across. So if you take the narrow I'm talking about it as though this makes sense. It does make sense. It seems to work. I mean, like, I don't know how I've come across these ideas. I do know how I came across the idea of the narrow path. The narrow path came from the idea that it says I'm waking up in 7.5 hours at 7:30. Thanks for telling me that. I don't want to be waking up at 7:30. Ugh. The narrow path is like, it's not even the shortest path. It's not the shortest path. It's the narrow path. There's the shortest path or the quickest path. There's also the different paths. The scenic route. We've heard of the scenic route, right? There's the round the houses route. There's a route where you're basing it on gravity. There's a route where you're basing it on trees. There's a route where you're basing it on sky. A route where you're basing it on just nature versus urban. The natural path in that instance, you could say the natural path. So, for example, the natural path would be, sorry, I can't seem to talk about the narrow path right now. The natural path would be if you're on a pavement walking and then there's some grass next to it. That's the natural path, is the grass that runs alongside the pavement. The pavement is the urban path. But I would usually, if I remember to, try and take the natural path, because it's actually quicker to walk on grass, I find. Whether that's because I'm some kind of super nature being or because it's generally quicker to walk on grass as a human being, because we are basically animals in our physicality, at least. Well, you are anyway. Whoever you are. Sorry. I can insult people from through the camera. I don't even know you. Sorry, you're not an animal. We're all animals. I am the one true animal being of life. Anyway. Shamanism. Yeah. Shamanism is so the natural path, the narrow path. So yeah, the narrow path is you take a very fine line everywhere you go. And I think that's the sort of thing that strange people do. I don't want to start diagnosing people, but it's an interesting behaviour when people follow the cracks on the pavement, for example. And you're like watching out for bears, you don't step on the cracks, that kind of thing. Hold on, no. Well, I suppose that could be one type of shamanic journey if you just decided to do it that way. But I don't think it's good to get addicted to that, because that's obviously strange. If you're only ever, if you're always not stepping on the cracks, it's hard work. Calm down. Shamanic journey more, and don't do that one. Do different ones. Go to the woods, and there are no cracks. That's true, actually. Even in bark. You say, oh, it's cracks. It's not cracks. It's just like layers of growth that are being expressed in the appearance of cracks. Basically, it's just growth of the tree. The bark is an expression of that. It's not actually cracked. It's not cracked. It appears to be cracked. It's not cracked. It's supposed to be that way, so it's not cracked, because cracked implies it's broken or something. It's not cracked. It's supposed to it's skin. That's like its pores. It's basically like its pores. The cracking is not like it's not broken. It's supposed to be that way, obviously, but it's just like the way that the skin of the tree works. That's how it works. So yeah, that's what I mean. You learn these things, and I've not taken that from a book or anything. I've not learned that from a textbook or anything. I've looked at trees for ages and ages and ages and wondered about them and hugged them, sat on them, pulled their leaves off, shaken them, stolen their twigs. Sounds horrible. I've tortured them, strung them up. I actually have. I've made some traps, kind of traps. I don't know if they were traps or not really. I was just having a laugh, messing around. I twisted one branch around the whole tree, ready to kind of ping it, possibly. I did all sorts of things in those woods, and there's stuff you learn from being in the woods as opposed to being in a campsite or being in some kind of like sanctioned area. It wasn't a sanctioned area. It was in the woods where you weren't supposed to be. It's almost like being in a nature reserve, but where no one else goes, no one else knows. Boop, 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 boop. Hey, yeah. So when you live in that kind of environment, it's like being in a journey, shamanic journey. It's like being in a fucking jungle. The woods is very jungle-like in that you never know what's going to happen. You never know what sound is going to come next, what person might be walking their dog, whether a dog's going to come sniffing your butt, you know, like pissing on your tent. Mice, rats, rabbits, squirrels, birds, you know, all sorts. It's a shame there's not more. There was not more animal contact in there, but we got a mouse, and that mouse was like... The thing about being in the tent was the sounds were amplified because you're kind of shitting yourself all the time. That is, are we going to be found? Because we knew it was kind of illegal, but we had nowhere else to go because we were homeless. So we were scared of all the time, basically, that we were there on some low-lying level at least, but oftentimes terrified of being found, of being caught, of being seen, of being raided, of things being stolen, of even just being intruded upon, even, you know, someone to come to the tent while we're in there, even. And it did happen a couple of times where people came to find us from the council or from the police. They came in basically to check if we were all right, honestly, is what they were doing. So that was fine. But it was terrifying to be there. Anyway, but what that does is it kind of amplifies your sensations of everything. So every noise was really loud because we were jittery, but also very highly attuned to everything that was going on. Partly because we were oftentimes stoned, but even when we weren't stoned, you were just like thrown into reality kind of thing, direct reality, but it's so fucking intense, it's hard to make sense of while you're actually there. You become like a cave person. Literally, both of us became like strange, gnarly, cave-dwelling beasts, smelly, grotty, you know, starting to fart out of our ears and things. Bizarre. Anyway, but you get to know the nature. So there's this mouse and it popped out, but we heard it before we saw it for about a week. This mouse and rustling around, really loud. And one night I was pretty fucking stoned and I sort of imagined what it would be like to be this mouse. And I was thinking, why is it so fucking loud? How can a mouse be so loud? Because everything else I think was quiet and this is the loudest sound. And I'm like, this mouse, why is it so loud? It sounds like someone else. It sounds like a rabbit or a dog. And it's a mouse. How can it sound so fucking loud? So I sort of imagined and projected and did a sort of transmogrification into this mouse. And I realised it's because the mouse believes itself to be massive. That's why. From the mouse's perspective, it's a giant. It's a giant in its own universe because it's eating tiny bugs or leaves or whatever. It is the giant, and it hardly sees any predators most of the time. And when it does, they just swoop down and eat it. So they run around, eat their stuff. Maybe they're scared, maybe they're not. They can't really predict when they're going to get killed by a predator, so I think they just sort of own it. They own the place. Wherever they go, they're like, yeah, I'm the boss. Because they just eat small things and they feel themselves be massive. It's like that thing where apparently if you lived a whole lifetime as a worm or something, it's actually supposed to be quite exhilarating being a worm because you're always tunneling and you love the tunneling of it. You're like, oh, I can't wait to get tunneling again. Tunnel, you know, you're just tunneling like maniacs. But yeah, so I imagined what it was like to be the mouse, and I thought it's because the mouse thinks it's massive. The mouse sort of believes itself to be this giant in this sort of tiny world, and that's why it's making it seem like it's so loud, because it's sort of like it's just stomping around like a giant. Either that, or it was a god deity walking around outside genuinely making massive noises, and the mouse was just some kind of like side distraction. Who knows? It did feel like a giant was walking around. Anyway, so that's a Shamanic Journey. That whole thing was part of a long Shamanic Journey, the mouse escapade, you know. So shamanism, you know, I think I should sort of say what is the benefit of it, or why bother, you know, why bother doing it. And I said earlier on, oh, we're trying to reach higher levels of consciousness. Of course we are. That's the point of it from that level. But on a more philosophical level, you want to know what's in it for me. You want to know, like, is it going to help me earn any more money? Is it going to bring me bitches? What's the point of doing a shamanic journey? Why bother? Well, number one, it's fun. Number two, it spices up your evening. Number three, it's basically, this is what a shamanic journey is. You know when you get really, really drunk, right? You get really, really drunk and you go to the club or you go to the pub or wherever and you stumble home and you end up in a bush. That's a shamanic journey because you've taken an altered state with the alcohol. You've gone on a journey and you've ended up in the unknown. And you feel like shit in the morning, but you know you had a good time. Right? It's a shamanic journey. You may or may not remember it. It's a shamanic journey, getting blind drunk and stumbling home and like crawling into someone else's wife's bed and getting punched in the face by the bloke is a shamanic journey. Okay, that's a silly one to do, but I don't advise that one. I'll give you another example for a shamanic journey. I did a shamanic journey, a kind of manifestational one. I wanted to do one where I'm trying to, I mean, a lot of my journeys at the moment are to do with that. Symbolically, I'm trying to create certain situations in my life, and I'm using symbols and objects and statements and mantras and things like that to create. I'm doing a lot of it. It's a bit much. I feel like I'm vortexing in the new decade, both for me and for everyone around me, which means I'm just doing a lot of light working in terms of shamanic journey. I'm doing a lot of healing for other people on a strange background level, like I'm just planting little pieces of shamanic happiness lying around for people to find, and they won't even find them. That's the whole point. It's not full finding, actually. It's a background sprinkling of magic dust in the background, if you like, and some of it's actually sprinkling dust or sprinkling shamanic dust and sprinkling sugar and salt and things like that, slug pellets even. No slugs. And yeah, so that's also shamanic. What else is there? So I was talking about bark and trees and the mouse and stuff. So you learn about rain in the woods, big time. You learn about cold, and you learn that the trees don't perceive themselves to be cold. Why would they? Because they just see it as winter is just another winter. Winter's just that feeling of them slowing down, if you like. So the trees just slow down and give up their leaves and go to sleep, kind of thing. The trees basically lie dormant. They go to sleep. It's just the trees. So you could almost think of some trees anyway, thinking that their day is 1 year. So a tree thinks of a year being like a day cycle. So they wake up in the spring going, yeah. And then they have a nice time over the summer going, making leaves and berries and fruits and flowers and all this stuff. And then they go, oh, I'm knackered. And then they sleep. And obviously not all trees sleep like that in the winter, but most trees, I think, have a sleep in the winter, and then they wake up in the spring going, ah. But it's just like a day for them. They're like, it's 1 day. They have a very long day from our perspective, but from their perspective, it's like one of our days. So, that's an insight which may or may not be true, but it's a nice thing to play around with in your head to create meaning from the world, and it sort of seems to match my observations. So yeah, whatever. It's a good idea, and I'll go with it. That's the whole thing with shamanism. You don't have to be right either. It's all very vague, and it's okay for it to be vague. If you want to go on a shamanic journey, you could literally just say to yourself, "I want to go on a shamanic journey. It starts now," and then whatever you do next, you just interpret that as a shamanic journey. Say, I went on a shamanic journey to the fridge. Fine. Next one, do it, and punch someone in the face. I don't know. No, don't do that. Do it and try not to trip up over a dog. And that makes it shamanic because you're doing something weird. It's unknown. It's altered state of reality, not necessarily state of mind. Obviously, other shamanic journeys are the mind ones, which I'm not really into. I can't seem to do the mind ones. I just fall asleep. But I'd like to do LSD and DMT and even MDMA. I've not done any of those more sort of high level psychotropic stuff. Acid. Wait, that is LSD. Mushrooms, even still, I haven't even done any mushrooms. I've never had a bona fide hallucination. Not even when I was psychotic have I ever had a bona fide hallucination. Never seen colours, shapes, patterns, other than what I perceive to be normal reality. Like I can see the colour of this and the pattern of this, the thingies, whatever, but no swirlies and psychedelic patterns and shit. Never seen it. Never seen it. I don't know if people do see it. If they do, I'd like to see it. I've kind of seen it when I'm really, really stoned, but it's not like actual colours and stuff. It's sort of like I could interpret what is in my head as colours, but it fades so quickly. It's not very strong. So is it psychedelic? I don't think so. I feel a lot of whooshing feelings in my body, but nothing psychedelic where I'm seeing imagery. I'd love to see imagery. I mean, I think I have had one vision recently, actually, but I can't remember it. So what's the point if you can't remember it? Oh well. I know it was good though. Yeah. So what else is it? Shamanic. So the narrow path is, as it says, narrow, thin, not short, but like if there's a choice, for example, if you're walking down the pavement, if you want to take a narrow path, if there's a choice between a thick open path and going through a narrow way, like if there's an obstruction, sometimes you get kind of like a pole, like a sign, a road sign, a lamppost or something. If one side is wide and the other side is narrow, if you decide to take the narrow path, you can start going on to the narrow path. So it's this choice point idea. To do with pathways as well, that you get certain choice points in your life, right? There are choice moments where you can choose between certain options or just make a free choice, a creative choice of or a surrendered choice where it's just like you let something happen. You just say, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to leave it and let something happen naturally, that kind of thing. But choice points, it relates to the path idea. So you might have a choice point between two different types of path: the wide path or the expansive path, which vague path's not really a path. So you just say, well, am I going to choose a narrow path or not? I'm going to carry on going on the wide path. Are there any other paths that I could take right now? So if you reach a choice point between a wide path and a narrow path, it's up to you, isn't it? What do you want to do? What makes sense to you? So various different types of narrow path. Going through a small gap in a fence is a narrow path, like a fox going through a narrow gap in the fence, because foxes are nifty, really nifty creatures. They are easily startled. They can time it such that most people won't see them. People do see them though, of course, but most of the time they don't, and they're still there. They've just gone hiding, and you, I think, would be blessed for a fox to spend a lot of time in stillness with you. So if a fox doesn't run off, just looks at you, stays there and just looks at you, that's a good sign, I'd say, because it's beautiful when it happens, and it means that you're so harmless to them that they're just interested in you. Because you've got to think, really, because mankind is a bunch of dicks, and we know this, it's in mankind is a bit of a brutal creature, isn't it, with regard to nature? It just tramples all over nature. So you got to think, the wildlife, wherever you are, depending on where you are, of course, is either going to be friendly to humans or distant from humans or indifferent or hostile. Even some places nature is hostile to humans, but it's because of us. If nature's hostile, it's because we're dicks, because we trampled their environment, taken up their homes and destroyed their habitats and poisoned their rivers and poisoned their skies and toxinated their environments and littered in their environments and built roads over their houses and forced them into places they didn't want to be naturally and introduced random species into their ecosystems and fucked their planet over, basically. We know this. We've known this for years. We've known it since the 70s. We've known it since the 60s, probably even the 50s. But people don't care, and I don't care, really, anymore. I mean, I'm an environmentalist in certain ways. I'm a shamanism. I'm a shamanism. I'm a shaman. I live in the woods, but I believe that nature will take over. Basically, is why I don't care anymore, because I've lived in nature, and nature is a powerful force. It really is stronger than us. I know we think we're stronger than nature, but we're not stronger than nature, because nature created us. Sounds like I'm being some kind of guru, but nature created us, didn't it? We were born from wherever. We kind of emerged from the planet, didn't we? The planet came before us, right? Do you believe that? I don't know. That's how I feel it happened. And it feels like cows rose from the ground over a period of millennia, obviously billions of millennia. However long it took for life to come, I feel like the earth came first, rocks came first, then plants probably, then animals and fish and whatever, and then humans sort of emerged from animals, or maybe they just decided, maybe humans were like dropped out of the sky. I don't know, but supposedly we evolved from apes. I don't know. I mean, I hope not, in a way. Don't you? Don't you just wish that we just look like them? We weren't evolved from them. No, we came from somewhere else. I don't know. I feel like we could just have easily dropped out of the sky, as we could have just quite easily merged out of the floor. You know, I don't know where we came from. I don't know where I came from. I came from someone's loins, apparently. So nature gave birth to us as a species. Nature, the planet, Gaia, brought about the whole ecosystem of the planet to where it is today. And like, it took millennia. I keep saying millennia, but it took millions of years for that to happen. And we think that because we've come along and we've like raised the temperature of the planet in a space of 60 or so years, that we're going to destroy the planet. Have a laugh. We're mental. We're so egomaniac that we think we can destroy the planet. That's the ego mania. Is actually that we think we're stronger than nature, that we think we can destroy the planet, that we think we're ever able to destroy the planet. Even that whole thing with nuclear weapons, the eve of destruction, the verge of destruction, the mass destruction potential. Bollocks. It's not going to happen, probably, because nature wills it not, or God wills it not, as it were. It hasn't happened yet. I don't think it will happen. It could have happened many times before. It hasn't happened. It just doesn't seem to be the right thing for the planet. Why would you do that? Why would anyone do that? Even the stupidest person probably is not going to do that. They'll not be able to do it. Even a really dumb president like Trump hasn't done it. Even a really dumb maniac like King Jong-un hasn't done it. No one's going to do it. No one wants to destroy the planet. Nature wills it not, or wills it not so. And I don't think that global warming is going to destroy the planet either anymore, because there's a lot of people who don't want it to happen anymore, for one. Nature doesn't really want it to happen. Global warming is just nature saying, oh, have a laugh, calm down. So the fact of global warming actually happening is the countermeasure to it. Duh. When the sea levels start to rise, there will be enough consequence for people to create the immediate solution to it. There is not this mass destruction thing necessarily. The whole point is it seemed like a horrible thing when you project it out into the future. When you actually arrive at it, you can deal with it. If the planet does go into some kind of like hot heating temperature, we will deal with it. Nature will just correct itself. Maybe mass migration will happen, I don't know. But we will deal with it. So forget about it almost, forget about it. Do what you want to do now with your life, basically, and stop worrying about creating the potential demise of the human race. Forget about global warming. Forget about cancelling out global warming. Start creating the luscious planet that you want to see, or that I want to see anyway. Start thinking about, how can I just make my garden look nice? That's helping the planet, that's helping nature. Start by planting things randomly in random places, in fields that you're not supposed to. Start indulging in nature's bounties as well. Things like rolling around on the grass, eating the wild, horrible, poisonous mushrooms that will kill you, smoking the reefer, taking herbs and supplements and aromatics and oils and all sorts. This is how you get in touch with nature, as well as going to the nature itself, and I call it the nature. When you go to the nature, it's not in nature or being in nature, it's go to the nature. The nature. Where is the nature? The nature is everywhere, but follow the nature. It's just gives it it's a different ring to it to call it the nature. It just gives it a different flavour. So yeah, that's shamanism in a nutshell. I will probably do more videos about this topic because it's obviously a long topic. That's a good enough introduction, I think. Take the narrow path means to go on a very thin track and get straight to the point, as it were. But what is the point? You don't know where you're going, but you take the narrow path to get wherever it is. So you think, all right, what's the diagonal path? Diagonal path is literally take a diagonal path. Switch it up, because that's the only way you get to see these different realities. The diagonal path opens up portals, because if you go, say for example, you normally go to work in a certain route, take a diagonal path, which means cross the road a couple of times. You don't have to do strict diagonal. You don't have to walk like diagonal like that. You don't have to go crazy. All right, you can do a perfectly shamanic thing by just crossing the road randomly at different points where you wouldn't normally, or walk on the other side of the road. Go a different route on purpose. A strange route. The strange path. There's a strange path as well, which is you just go on a weird route and you mess around on the route. There's also something called time loops, which is where you pause randomly for long periods for no good reason. You pause excessively long. You wait where you don't need to wait. Things like that. Stuff where you'd normally be rushing, you wait. Stuff where you normally wait, you rush. Things like that. You can create strange time vortexes by pushing time, as in rushing very hard and then pulling back and relaxing. So you manipulate time by how you force your energy through different events. And that's probably some deep stuff I just said there, actually. But I'm going to round it up. So I think I've done enough on that one, but I think it's a rich topic to explore, the nature of shamanism and what can you learn. I mean, just talking about these different paths, when you go on those different paths that I've spoken about, you will find learnings, whatever they might be. Oftentimes it's just a change in perspective, seeing things slightly differently, and that can be exciting enough. Honestly, to go down a road and to see a new house that looks amazing with all this decoration on it that you've never seen before, because it's completely blanked out from your reality normally, because you just walk straight past it or drive past it, you've never seen it before. But then this house suddenly appears out of nowhere because you've never seen it before, but it's been there for years and it's the most fantastic house. It's amazing. Or to see, to be going on this weird shamanic journey, to suddenly arrive at a billboard that has the exact message that you needed to hear in your life, and it's completely random and it's for BT or something, but it's completely the correct message that you needed to hear in your life. Or you walk past the video shop, you walk past some shop and it's got a TV on and it's exactly the thing that you wanted to see, that kind of thing. Like I really wanted to play some Mario, the old school NES version of Mario, Super Mario Bros. I think it is. Yeah, I really wanted to play that, and Providence made it happen. when I was on a shamanic journey, actually. I was on some weird shamanic journey, I can't remember. It's to do with homelessness, and I was trying to get something sorted out in the council, some council or other, in Staines Council, I think. And I was on this massive shamanic journey, and I'd had this desire to play the old school Mario thing, and I didn't know when it was going to be possible because I was living in the woods and so I didn't have a TV, didn't have my SNES or any other way of emulating it or anything. So I couldn't. It keeps telling me I'm waking up in 7 hours. I don't care. Yeah, so I went on the shamanic journey, and it appeared someone was selling this crappy knockoff SNES with 600 games, 628 games in one or something, and it's actually a fairly decent system from what I played. Anyway, it seems to work quite well. But the guy said that it's a genuine one, the same as the one they've got in Argos. It's not a genuine SNES. It's not a genuine Super Nintendo system that he was selling. It's the knockoff one. And I knew it was a knockoff one because I seen the damn knockoff one on eBay because I tried to buy it once and they didn't fucking send it to me. So I got to get a refund. Anyway, so I was walking on this shamanic journey through Staines upon Thames in England, which is a town in England if you're American watching this. And it's where Ali G came from, if you know the Ali G character, Sacha Baron Cohen. Anyway, that's a claim to fame of Staines. Let me tell the story. Yeah, I was walking along and they had the Staines market on and they were selling these old knockoff things, and on it they were demoing the Mario game that I wanted to play. I mean, what the fuck? How you couldn't have predicted that? So unpredictable that they would be demoing that exact game that I wanted to play while I was totally out of context. You know when you're like out of context from your normal life situation, if you've gone traveling or you're somewhere else and it's just bam, happened exactly, something perfectly manifests from the universe, exactly what you wanted to do. And so I was just walking past and I caught sight of this TV with the Mario game on, which actually links back to what I was saying on it earlier. And I was like, boom, this is exactly what I needed in my life. It's exactly what I even wished for this to happen. Not in this context per se, but I wished that I had one of those NES, the first one, the Nintendo Entertainment System, with the first crappy Mario one, that I wished that I had one, and then I was back at home playing on it. But I wasn't. I was just walking through Staines and boom, there's the game, there's the controller. Beautiful experience. Really, really good. I played for 5 minutes. I kept the guy occupied by saying stuff to him every now and again, like, oh yeah, how much is it, blah blah blah, and I'm just playing on the game going, this is amazing, I can't believe my dream has come true so strangely. Yeah, so there you go. Was that the narrow path? I don't know what that path was. I probably took various different paths there. And it's all to do with meaning. Why are you doing it? What do you want from life? You know, what are you trying to test? Sometimes I test theories by going on a shamanic journey. So I test a theory about time loops. Is there such a thing as time loop? Well, what I'll do is I'll test my idea of time loops by trying to create some time loops, by doing stupid shit and see if it gives the results that I think it would give. There you go. And is it just perception or what? Who knows? Is a time loop real or not? Who knows? Does it matter? Not really. It's fun, isn't it? It's fun. So no, it doesn't matter. It's fun. It's extracurricular. This is all extracurricular. The spirituality doesn't really matter per se, because it's like it's well, it's the only thing that matters. So therefore, it doesn't matter in the same way. It's like neutral. It's above mattering. It's above care. It's above importance. Spirituality does not concern itself with whether it exists or not. It's happy spirituality, isn't it? So yeah, shamanism is a way to enjoy life. It's just a way of making the urban environment more fun. You can go on shamanic journeys in a shop. You can go shopping is kind of a shamanic journey. You're going out into a mystical place where there are all sorts of strange sights and sounds, and you're going to come back with mysterious objects that you're never going to use again, but you would damn not going to give them to anyone else while you're in the shop. You know, these are mine. Like you've bought your object of power, whatever it is, some pair of shoes, a handbag, a backpack, I don't know, a new phone. You've bought your totem, your object of power, your Buddha droid, your Buddha object, your shamanic tool, and you come back with a new jumper as well, and some extra jeans, and a nice shirt, and a new wallet, and some shaving foam, and you've got all your shamanic goodies, and you come back with all your shamanic normie stuff, basically, is what we would call it, normie stuff, all your high class living of the modern age. It's a shamanic journey because you've gone out, not maybe you do know what you want, great. If you don't know what you want, great. But either way, you're going out on a journey to retrieve something or achieve something, collect something, pick something up, gather. You're hunting and gathering. It's a journey. It's a shamanic journey. Shopping. So that's why I think it's good to get really fucking stoned and go shopping. Because you come back with weird shit and it's great. You're like, yeah, I thought this would be a good idea at the time. Only do it if you have the money. But then you can do like shamanic money retrieval. And money retrieval would be like, how do I heal my problems with money? Is basically what you're trying to do. It's not, you don't steal anything or do anything bad. I mean, you can, sure you can. I just choose not to mostly damage anything or steal anything. I can't be bothered with it. I've done that before in my childhood. I mean, come on, I'm 34. But you're trying to retrieve a sense of abundance when you go on that sort of journey. You're trying to create a sense of abundance or find a sense of abundance or, even maybe even to just look at some expensive things could be considered to be a shamanic journey. Depends what is your purpose. That's the thing that I said at the beginning. It really relates to your own sense of meaning. So if you decide that your next journey is going to be a shopping shamanic journey, good for you, because then you go out with a different perspective. You'd be like, okay, I'm going out into the mysterious shopping realm, and then you create a meaning around it, and it's some kind of fantastical adventure. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to the wonderful realms of boots and pick up some strange apothecary bottles of wonder potions, whatever. That's how I would like to go to Boots. I think it'd just be fun. Or if your shamanic journey is more like a Harry Potter thing, maybe you want to go to the Harry Potter universe, and that can be your shamanic journey, and you go there every time you do a shamanic journey, and you hide and you pretend you're Harry Potter. I don't know, you're pretending you're Hermione or Ron. Who knows? But that's your journey, fine. But if it means something to you, that's what one of my definitions is. The journey has to mean something. It doesn't have to mean something. It will mean something. They tend to mean something. You're doing it for a reason. It's like a rain dance. You're dancing to create rain or praise for the rain, to bring the rain, to thank the rain even, to celebrate the rain. And a rain dance, they work. That's why they do it. That's why they've continued to do it. They work, maybe not immediately, but sometimes it can be immediate. I've had every now and again occasions where the weather actually does brighten up when I ask it to. Not all the time. I'm not saying I'm in control of the weather. I'm saying that sometimes the weather is as I want it to be. You get those days where you're like, yeah, the weather did a good job today. Most of the time it doesn't in Britain because this is a horrible fucking country full of terrible weather. But it's interesting whether it's variable if you choose to see it that way. Shamanically, because I'm in touch with the nature, so I feel the nature. Sometimes the nature's so harsh from a human perspective because we've got all these cozy living situations. Nature can be quite harsh, especially in the winter. That's why we're back at home and not living in the woods right now, because it is harsh and cold from our perspective. So yeah. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. That's been my introduction to shamanism. The narrow path.